Welcome back, I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online, the supermarket series. And we're going today to look at using an interesting container. Now I have been out into the auctions and the charity shops. This is one that you might well see there or you might have at home. It's a 4-sectioned glass dish that ends up in a circle. But we're going to look at some different ways of using it, apart from just having it in the circle. So we'll make the 4 individual arrangements and then look at how we can place them. We're going to use a bunch of roses, so 8 stems. Normally would come in a bunch of roses from the supermarket. And we're going to use 6 aspidistra leaves, but we're going to use them in different ways. So you also need a stapler and some staples. So let's get started. Container, glass container. It has got each section has got some water in it already. What I want to show you first of all is what to do with the aspidistra leaves. Now aspidistra is very, very manipulative, so manipulable. So you can actually roll it up into just a roll like that, and if you staple it, you can then stand them up like that and put your flowers in it. So cut the stem off, obviously. But today I will do some like that, but what I want to show you first of all is a neat little trick for making a cone. So basically you've got your aspidistra leaf. Make sure that you've just softened it a little bit by running your fingers along the spine. Just the heat of your fingers will soften it up so that it's a bit more pliable. Then we just fold it around the base till we've got that cone edge there. Turn it upside down and tuck this leaf in. Now if you wanted to, because that will hold on its own, you could leave it like that, or you can, if you think you need a bit of a stem to put into your arrangement, this should be pliable enough now to fold back in and down through the base of the cone, so that you've got that you can place in. And then just to hold it in place, because that will push against the other leaves, we'll just put a little staple in the base of it. And there we have it, ready to use in our design. Obviously the staple will show. You can either have another little bit of leaf that you stick over that. You could colour it in with texture, or you could just leave it and hide it in the rest of the design. That's the only one that I'm going to staple. The rest are going to be rolled. So I'll remove the stapler out of our presents and let's get started. So we've got 8 roses. So let's get them into the 4 sections. So 2 in each. They're all around about the same size. So it's just a matter of cutting them down to the size. Now I'm going to have them floating more or less in these sections. There is a video from March or April, I think, of 2023 that talks about floating flowers and putting bubble wrap on the base so that you can have the stem as absolutely short as possible. At the moment I'm just going to let them be a reasonable length, and then I'm going to adjust them once they're in place, when I know what I'm doing with the aspidistra. So I'll place them all in the one section for the time being, just so that they keep hydrated. I'm cutting about, say, 2 inches down from the stem, just as the first cut, so that I can then size them and have them floating the way I want to in these other sections. And I probably will go back to using the bubble wrap so that I can have the stem as short as possible, because it's a very, very narrow lip on this particular container. Now this rose has got a couple of areas, a couple of petals that are not so good, so I'm just going to remove those. She said dropping it into the water. Needs a big drink. And that one actually had water in it, interesting. All right, so now we've got the roses cut. We'll decide what we're going to do. Pardon me for leaning down to the bucket. Decide what we're going to do with this aspidistra. Remembering that I actually want to section these separately so that I can manipulate this arrangement, because what I want to be able to do, I shall show you, is not always have it so that it's in that rounded shape, but to sometimes move it so that we can have just that half S, or we can have a full S running down the centre of a table, so that people will get an idea of a full arrangement, but they'll be able to look at a section each themselves. So if I'm going to arrange it first of all in the circle, and then I'll take some photos of it in the different configurations so that you can see what I mean. So we want 2 for each. Now, bearing in mind that we might be having it in that other configuration, we don't want them to be in the centre of each of those sections. You could have them that way, but it's going to be fairly dull and boring, and when you move them around into that S shape, they're all going to look like they've just been plonked down. So we want to have a little bit of movement, a little bit of interest through the design, so regardless of how we place it, it does make our eye move around in and out of the design. So let's see what we can do with some of this aspidistra. Cleaning it off because it came straight out of the garden and it's still a bit dirty. Now what I'm going to do here is just run my fingernail and split the leaf, because what that gives me is 3 sections I can use. So we have this nice one here that we will cut off. It becomes like a blade. And what we're going to have is just to have the roses tucked around that, and then the rest of it is going to be the rolled and manipulated aspidistra. So with this one, we're just going to tie it in a knot. Once again, if it is a bit slippery, this is slippery because it's wet, but if it is moving out of place, you can put a little staple down the bottom of those areas there. And we'll just trim this up. See me hesitate because I didn't know whether to pick up the scissors or not, or the knife. So what I'm doing is extending the flowers, or the arrangement, over the edge of the container, so not be constrained by the container itself. And these obviously need to be very short to sit in there. Now in the next one we're going to use the cone. We're going to put one of the roses down into the cone. You'll see that it still comes to the base there, cut it off there. And that's going to sit there. And this one's going to sit just behind it in the water. Now we'll do the same again for the next section, and then we'll roll up some. So I'll show you how the rolling goes, because that's another technique, and then I'll finish it off and you can see the end bit. So it's basically just taking it from the top, hold it with your finger, rolling it. Now this one, I will staple it because I haven't manipulated the edge of it enough and it's getting a bit stiff. Would be obviously better with a smaller stapler, but this will still give us a roll, as you can see. And so the next one will have a roll, but rather than have it upright, I'm going to have it sideways and have the roses coming out either end. So for that I need to make sure that they're still in water, so I've got to do a hole in the base of the roll for the rose to get the water through. And we'll just sit it like that. So what you're beginning to see is that it's a bit of a showcase between the foliage. It's not so much about the roses as it is about the foliage. So I'll finish off the next couple of sections and then you can see the finished product, and then I'll do some photos of it in its different configurations. So there we have our finished ring shape. What I've done, I quite like the look of having just glass and clear water, but I thought I would show you what you could do if you're not keen on that particular look, is just cut up so all I've done is cut up the aspidistra leaf into little sections and just floated that onto the water just to fill those gaps that are there. But that's our 4 sections, and as you can see I've grouped them together. Secure him better. I've grouped the roses together for this particular configuration, and as I said, I will take some photos of the different configurations that you could do so you can see how it would look if it was not in the circular shape. So let me go away and do that, and you can go and have a practice. I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online.